Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. And, I'm sorry I couldn't be here longer. Okay, so this is a joint team between INRIA and CEREMAD, Université Paris-Dauphine, which means that there's a lot of people involved in this work. And the main driving force on the topic of mean field games in our team is mostly Guillaume Carlier, who I guess some of you know quite well. Okay, so here is the outline. I'm not a probabilist at all, so I feel quite impressed by all these young people who know much more than I do in the field. So I'll try to give a basic introduction of what we do, especially dynamic optimal transport. I will explain. Oops, sorry. Bon, commence pas bien. Then I will relate with multi-marginal optimal transport. Then I will explain what is entropic regularization and the associated numerical method. So there is a numerical method which is very popular in optimal transportation now, and that's this one. Oops, sorry. So I don't know how to go back. And then it's going to be real today. Bon. Okay, it's the end. So I go back first. I'll just tell you what I will do. Okay, so and then I will relate all this to mean field games, and in particular stochastic mean field games, and I will show you a work in progress which uses this Sinkhorn numerical method in the setting of variational mean field games. Okay, so I have absolutely no idea if this is useful, because it's the variational mean field games are the simplest case of mean field games, and in particular, all I'm going to say today applies to variational mean field games with quadratic Hamiltonian. Okay. And I understand that Yves has done already a large introduction, so I'll try to go faster. I have too many slides, so I might go fast at the beginning. So this is the Monge problem in optimal transport. So stop me if I go too fast, okay? Because I'm going to speed up, because this is not really needed. So your data are density functions. So you have, imagine that you have two density, rho 0 and rho 1, and they represent some mass that you want to move. Okay, so the mass is first at rho 0, and then you change the mass, and it has to be to have the shape rho 1 at the end. Okay, this is your data. What you're looking for is a measure-preserving transport map. So you want a map. So it's a 1D. You got it right. It's a 1D case. You want a map T which sends the mass prescribed by this density to this density, and not in any way. You want the mass. You want a measure-preserving, which means that there is a constraint on the map T, and this is this constraint. Okay, and this constraint means that you cannot gain or lose mass when you move. Okay? T push forward rho 0 is a barbaric notation, but I think it's in probability, you know that, right? I mean, no? Okay, so the translation for me, for people like me, well, it's that you take any measurable subset of your target, here, B, take the pre-image, and the rho 0 measure of the pre-image is this push forward, is this image, is this measure. Okay? So that means that this area here has to be the same as this area for all measurable subsets. Okay? Bon. And if T is smooth, you have more, but we're going to go fast. Okay, optimal transport is to minimize an action. This is this action here, okay? And this action says that you pay to move from x to t of x a unit of mass. Okay? That's what you pay to move from x to t of x, a unit of mass, and you multiply by the amount of mass that you send from x to t of x. Okay? That's a work. That's the work you do to move your mass. Okay? And in the talk, typically, we will have this ground cost. Sometimes we call it the ground cost because it's the cost, and that's going to be P equal 2. And when P equal 2, this problem is well posed. It's a famous theorem by Yann Brenier and so forth. Okay, but that's not the story of today. There is a dynamic. There is some dynamics below. Well, you can add some dynamics to the problems. Okay. So, voilà. There is dynamics to the problem, and the dynamics can be expressed like that. If you want to interpolate between two densities here, okay, and you do L2 interpolation, just classical least square, that's what you're going to get in as an average. Okay, this one. L2 mean as an average, simply because the L2 interpolation is just done pointwise, and that's it. Now you can do optimal transport interpolation. The optimal map is this grad phi of x, okay? So you can interpolate, but you interpolate not the density, you interpolate the optimal transport map. So it's like a super complicated change of variable. Okay? And so for t between 0 and 1, you interpolate between where you were when you started and where you are when you finish. So this is the displacement. It's a famous paper by McCann in 1997. Okay? Once you've done that, you take the push forward of your density at every time, and you have a curve of densities in time. Okay? Please stop me. Okay, and this is what is represented here, and here you have the time equal 1/2. Okay? So it's very nice if you want to have a feeling of displacement between your densities. It's a very natural interpolation. And it's a geodesic distance. The square root of the work is proportional to t, in fact. And it's a geodesic distance on the space of probability measures. Well, okay, and that's a 2D example where I represent the deformation of a grid under the displacement, interpolation displacement, for constant densities and for heterogeneous densities. This mass here, there's a lot of mass here, it goes there, but to go there, the mass shrinks and expands and so forth. Okay, but that's not very good. Okay. Okay, so particles move in straight line. And in fact, you can, we're reaching mean field games. In fact, these trajectories of densities are also solution of a relaxed problem, which is this problem here. Okay, so I guess Yves has said a little bit about that, right? So I hope so. So instead of minimizing your work, the work now is going to be the kinetic energy. It's kinetic energy here. And the constraint is this continuity equation that, I mean, all the people are doing mean field games know. And you prescribe initial density and final density. So this is the original problem of Monge. You want to go from rho 0 to rho 1. But now you minimize on a much bigger space. You try to find densities and speed which depends on time and space and which are going to transport your mass in this fashion. But in fact, I've made the problem much bigger, but in fact the solution is still the solution of Monge problem. Okay? simply because the geodesics are straight lines. Okay? And in fact, so you can write the dual of this problem, and the dual of this problem is simply this equation. And you write the dual and you find the optimality conditions. And in fact, solving this problem is a variational mean field game. It's the simplest variational mean field game, probably, which consists into this equation for the Lagrange, which is the Lagrange multiplier of this equation. In fact, phi is the Lagrange multiplier of this equation. And you have an optimality system based on density and potential. Okay? Ça va? And that was the basis of many numerical methods in optimal transport. Basically, that was the only way to compute big problems, but not so big, in optimal transport for a long time, until very recently. And it has been extended into mean field games, variational mean field games. We have a paper with Guillaume, but Francesco and also Mathieu worked a lot on that, and as Yves has explained, I guess. But that's not the story for today. Story for today is to use another dynamic relaxation of optimal transport, which is based on Kantorovich relaxation. Okay? So basically you can forget all the beginning. But it will be useful because I'm still using this barbaric notation. I mean, I have not been working in optimal transport for a long time, and then 5 years ago I started again, and I realized people were interested, which was nice. But the problem was that they were using these notations, which I didn't understood at all. So it took me 5 years to get used to. And but now I'm almost convinced it's a good notation, even though it's horrible because it's too sketchy for me. But anyway, okay. So Kantorovich relaxation, 1942. It's another relaxation of Monge problem, the first one I explained. And it's based on the idea that instead of computing transport maps, you compute transport plans. That's basically the idea. What is a transport plan? A transport plan is gamma. It's a probability measure on the product space. Okay, so D0 is the support of row 0, D1 is the support of row 1. Okay, and you have a product space, so a much bigger problem. Gamma is a probability measure, and I represented here a support of gamma. So often we view that as a stochastic version of Monge because the mass which is here can be anywhere. It's not bound to go in one place. It can go in many places. You have a unit of mass, and now you can split it into smaller amounts. Okay? Ça va? Oui. Okay? But you need to enforce the fact that you send row 0 to row 1. And that's this equation here. PDI is the projection from this space on D0 or D1, and the push forward of gamma is simply the margin of gamma. Okay? So that means that I look at all the gamma measure of all these guys. It should be the same as the row 0 measure of this guy. Okay? So when you sum the mass, here you find the good mass, the good amount of mass, and same on the lines, same on the columns. I'm trying to go fast because I have too many slides. But if it's a problem, now you stop me. Okay. So that's what is written here. That's a translation for any measurable subset B0. You take the margin, you integrate with respect to gamma, and you find back the correct amount of mass that has to be sent from row 0, from D0 to D1. So it's a very nice idea. So this set is not empty because you can always take the product measure. Bon, okay. And now Kantorovich problem is this one. Okay. The measure tells you how much mass you take from the location row 0 and send to row 1. Okay, and you pay again how much it takes to take the mass from row 0 to from x0 to x1. Okay, ça va? Bon. there is a class, there is a class of transport plans which are important. These are the transport plans who are deterministic. I mean, if you have a transport map, a solution of Monge problem, you can always build a transport plan. Okay? And you do it using this horrible push-forward notation again, which simply says that gamma t, so if you have a map T, okay, the measure of gamma applied to B0, B1 is simply the rho zero measure of the points here which have, for which the image is in B1. Okay, so that way you can build a coupled measure on the product space. Okay, but you can trust me there, it's okay. And in fact, proving Brognier theorem is to prove that, you see that it's a nice problem, it's a linear problem. Okay, so it's not too difficult to see that it has minimizers. And the proof of Brognier theorem consists into checking that minimizers are in fact concentrated on the deterministic transport plan supported by the map, the optimal map. Okay, and the map has properties, nice properties, blah, blah, blah. Okay? But again, it's not very important for the talk of today, but you need that to understand the relaxation. And of course, you can use that to solve the optimal transport problem, but it's a very big linear program, and very big linear programs are hard to solve simply because of the size. Okay? Okay, so an even bigger problem. Okay, so now we're going to talk about dynamic counter-Hurwitz relaxation. So instead of having a transport plan, which is a measure on a big space, we're going to consider measures on a bigger space. Okay, so what is that? You're going to look at all the curves which are living in D. So this is time, this is space, and now I'm going to consider all the curves from time 0 to time 1 which are in D, okay? And I'm going to look at a probability measure on all these curves. Okay? Probability measure on all these curves. What does it mean? It means that to all these curves, I'm going to put a value which is basically the amount of mass which is going to travel along this curve. That's all. Okay? And I'm going, but to enforce the good constraints, the good optimal transport constraint, I'm going to use again this notation. So ET is simply the position of every curve omega at time t. Okay, so it's just a so-called t evaluation function. The push forward of the big measure by this map is also a measure, but this time just on the configuration space at time t, okay? And it's simply the Q measure of all the curves which are going through this guy at time t. Defines a measure at time, on D at time t. And of course, I'm going to ask that, for example, here is the correct boundary value, boundary constraint. This should be rho 1 if I want to solve my problem. Okay? Oui?
Is D a compact set? What is D in this case? D?
D, yes, you can think of, here you can think as a compact, but it could be torus, it could be also, if you want to work in all space, then you have to enforce conditions on the densities, but...
Yeah, so what is the metric on omega of D? It has a metric, no? When you speak about probability, you have a single algebra and so on, so what is the...
Okay, so the metric will be the Wasserstein metric. Okay. What you're going to ask is that the curves are going to be absolutely continuous in the Wasserstein.
I mean, it has the measure structure, no? It has a sigma algebra for like, when you say omega D?
Well, I'm not too sure I'm able to answer your questions, in fact, but okay, but yeah. I keep it at formal level for now. Okay. Sorry. But I'm going to point references. Okay? Okay, well, in any case, So this is the way to enforce. So what is the dynamic Kantorovich relaxation? So it's written in little here, but so you enforce that in some sense the margin of this big Q at time 0 and time 1 are your data. Okay, so rho 0, rho 1. And now you minimize the kinetic energy of all the curves weighted by Q. Okay? So there is an integration on all the curves. This is weighted by Q, so that is how much mass travels along omega. Okay, and you pay this term, which is the kinetic energy of omega. Okay? Yes?
Why is that a Kantorovich and not a Monge form?
Well, I mean, the Monge, what we call, in our community, what we call a Monge formulation would be a static formulation. But you're right, a Kantorovich is also static, so I called it a dynamic Kantorovich, but it's more a Lagrangian Kantorovich formulation. But that's what I can say. Okay? Yes?
Use the LP norm to be P into the 2 here?
Yes, this would correspond to C, which is just the Euclidean distance square. That's your question, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, for other C's, you would replace here C of omega. Yeah. Okay, that would only work. That's only. I mean, this formulation corresponds to C, is the Euclidean distance square. Yeah, sure. But you can replace, of course. There are more general versions of that. Okay. In fact, this would be the geodesic distance induced by the Riemannian metric, for example, or whatever. And again, it's quite remarkably, the solution of this problem reduces again to a deterministic formulation. So I don't know if I need to go on all this, but basically, the solution of this problem, the Q measure, is going to be concentrated on the same geodesics that I started with. Okay, almost surely. Okay, so it looks not very useful because basically I started from a very simple problem, which was static. Then I said, okay, you can add time, but trajectories of particles are going to be straight lines. And then I said, okay, I'm going to relax it into a complicated mean field game, but in the end it's going to still be the same solution. And now I have this huge problem, this very big problem, but the solution is still the same. Okay, but it's going to be useful in the next sections. And of course, there is a lot of analysis to be done to give meaning to this equality here, that there are indeed densities, curves of densities, which can be constructed, need some analysis, and that's where you should look. Yes.
So here your result is. As soon as you have a transport, then the solution is deterministic?
Well, in fact, yes, and the other way around. If you find an optimal Q, you can show that it's concentrated on the transport. Yeah. Okay, so I'm afraid I'm going to... Okay, so you can discretize in time. Okay, so if you want to make it simpler, you can discretize in time and look at piecewise linear paths. If you look at piecewise linear paths, okay, then the only thing that you need to prescribe is the position of the path at each of these time steps, Ti. Okay? And then everything becomes much simpler. The measure now is a probability measure on the product space of all the intermediate guys. Okay? And the conditions are just the margins of this big probability measure. Okay? And you can simplify also you can simplify the cost function, the action. This is the exact integration of of these guys on piecewise linear paths, okay? I'm doing that because, in fact, this could be considered as the simplest instance of multi-marginal optimal transport. Okay, so there's a whole theory, a reasonable number of people working on this type of problems, which are a direct generalization of Monge problem for multi-marginal. So you can have a cost function which depends on all these guys. Look for a measure which depends on all the marginals here, and you prescribe. You can prescribe many marginals like that. Okay. So instead of having just rho 0 and rho 1, you have rho 0, rho 1, rho m, and so forth. And the cost function can be much more complicated. For example, there are in this field here, you have a Coulomb type interaction between all the margins. Okay, so you can have more general problems, but I don't have time for that. Okay, so that's the cost for Wasserstein barycenter. So if you want to compute barycenters in the Wasserstein metric for densities, instead of doing just the regular barycenter, you need to solve this problem. Okay, you will find the barycenters of guys prescribed here, and this is for three densities: a donut, a pig, and a duck. You solve the optimum transport, and you get something like that, which is a smoother interpolation between all these guys. Okay, that's a paper by Salomon, Perret, and people, Couturi. It's a SIGGRAPH paper, so it has at least 10 authors. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to the numerical method. So the numerical method, so I'm going fully discrete. Okay. So fully discrete, now my measures are, you can think of as weights on a grid. So it's empirical measures, rho 0, rho 1. Okay, so the mu weights are these guys here. And what you're looking for is a matrix now, the matrix gamma ij. Gamma ij is the black spots. Okay, so you just need to find how much you take from this guy and you send to the blue guy. Okay. This part of the action is the transport. Cij is your cost matrix. Okay, so you send mass to mass, so you just have to know how much it costs you to go from I to j. Okay, so this is the transport part. And this is your constraint. So you sum over lines and you sum over columns. Sum over lines, sum over columns, and you need to have the correct mass. And I said that this was a complicated problem because it's a linear program. The set of constraints is a very big polytope, okay, with many extremal points. So it's hard to solve. So the idea is to regularize the problem, not with any regularization function, but with this function, which is an entropy. Okay? So this is a strictly convex function of gamma. So it's going to move you inside your polytope, make your objective function strictly convex, and as I'm going to show, it's going to make the problem very easy to solve. Okay? And you can reformulate it as the minimum of a Kullback-Leibler distance between, as a projection on this Gibbs measure of gamma on this set of constraints. So Kullback-Leibler is here, so it's a relative entropy. So going from there to there is just some algebra. Okay? Okay? And so the people who have had the idea to use that into the optimal transport are in fact these two guys, Alfred Galichon, who's working more in economics, so this was independent work, and Marco Couturi. His paper now is quite famous in the computer graphics community. And why? Well, it's just written on this slide. It's very simple. If you do the duality of the regularized problem, you write that and you realize very quickly that the optimal matrix, gamma, the optimal plan, is just a scaling of the Gibbs measure. Okay? A and B are going to be the Lagrange multiplier of the constraint, of the mass constraint. And you can write it like that. So now you can just look for A and B. You plug that into the margin condition, and you find these two equations. Okay? So you've changed your problem into, which was a big problem of a coupling matrix, gamma, into just finding two vectors, A and B. Okay, so there is a magic things which happens because of, mostly because the Legendre-Fenchel transform of this guy is an exponential, and that only happens for this regularization, this entropic regularization. Okay? So now you want to solve this coupled set of equations, and the method is just simply relaxation. So given B, you compute A. Okay, so you fix B, you compute A, and then you fix A, you compute B. So it's just a scaling algorithm. Given B, you're going to adjust your A scaling such that the margins mu are correct. And given A, you scale B so that the margin, and it converges. Okay? So it's a projection, it's an alternate projection algorithm. Okay? And the only thing that you have to do is multiply matrix by vectors and divide. So it's a bit embarrassing because until these guys in optimal transport, we did not realize that there was such a simple algorithm to do it, and it's quite efficient, as I'm going to see to show you. So this is just an example of sending this mixture of Gaussian to this one. This is the optimal transport plan. Okay, so it's a 1D example. That is a plan. This is what happens across the iterations. So you start with identity, and then you scale A and B, and you reach the correct solution. And this is what happens when epsilon decreases. Okay? Of course, this problem is not the original optimal transport problem. It blurs the solution. Okay? Okay, so you can prove that iteration are contraction. This is very important. If you are in the case where the Euclidean distance square, this is your Gibbs measure. Okay? And this is important because you're going to multiply this matrix with vectors or matrices. And in fact, in this case, you can separate along dimensions. So you have a Toplitz's matrix which is separable. So you have smaller matrices. And the cost of one iteration now is just 3 to the half. Okay, so it's so in fact you think that you have lost a lot by going to Kantorovich, but in fact in this particular case you have not lost much. Okay, so multi-marginal optimal transport is the same. Okay, except that a lot less is known on the theory. So now I have many scalings, okay, which are associated to each of the constraints on the margins. And you have a much bigger, a bigger cost matrix, okay? Because the cost is this one. It's the discretization of my kinetic energy. But in this case, you can separate also. Okay, you can separate also the cost matrix. Okay, but you can, I mean, I'm a bit afraid that I'm going to go faster, but the algorithm now is just, on each margin, you just have to make a lot more sums of product of matrices and so forth. And in the end, the remarkable thing is that for this cost function, which is why I said at the beginning that all I'm going to say applies to the quadratic Hamiltonians, okay? If you have many margins, you don't lose much because you can separate all these guys. Okay? And it does something like that. So this will be, if you want, this is the method applied to the computation of a geodesic density, a curve of density which is geodesic for the Wasserstein distance between a rectangle of unit density 1 to 1 vertical. Okay? So this is the curves of densities computed with this method, and this is the convergence of the method for different values of the discretization. This is logarithm scale, so it's really a contraction and it goes like that. This 10 to the minus 14 here. So it works. So this is optimal transport between, because it's optimal transport, you're going to spread the density and then concentrate it again. Okay? Okay, so there is, so of course, I mean, I've presented the method in a very simple way. Okay, so these two equations are just alternate projection in the sense of it's a projection in the sense of this Kullback-Leibler relative entropy distance from the Gibbs measure to what I'm looking for. Okay, but you can generalize it. And it's done in this paper by it's a student of Gabriel Perret, Shiza, Perret, Schmitzer, Vialar, and so forth. So you can generalize, and you can now write. So this is just a two-margin problem. It's a two-margin problem. So they only do two-margin problem in this paper. So this is the transport which includes the entropic regularization. So you want to project your plan onto the Gibbs measure, and now you can relax your margins, what you pay for your margins. So for example, this is your cost function, which relaxes the condition on the margin. So one margin, two margin. You can write the dual. And as I said, the Legendre-Fenchel transform of this Kullback-Leibler guy is an exponential. So this is the direct product between U and V, which are the Lagrange multiplier of these two guys. Okay. You have your dual. And the problem is, and again, for this general problem, the optimal solution, gamma, is a scaling. Okay. Again, because of the structure of this regularization. And now the scaling algorithm, the general scaling algorithm is just alternate. So you optimize over U and then over V. And you can write. It's exactly the same structure. Example. So if F is just 0, if you force your margin to be rho 0, okay, and plus infinity else, you find back what I just presented. If F is the Kullback-Leibler distance, if instead of penalizing exactly rho to be rho 0, you give a little bit of flexibility, then you find back something which is known as unbalanced optimal transport. And the algorithm is like that. Okay, so you see you have a penalization. It's quite amusing, huh? Because optimal transport tells you have a very strong constraint. You want to send a density to a density, mass 1 to mass 1. Not many problems are like that, right? I mean, so if you want to have a little bit of flexibility, and if you use this particular penalization, okay, so it's a relative entropy between rho 0 and what you get, in the end, this algorithm is the same. Except that you have this power, which is lambda over lambda plus epsilon. So it's just, you change one line in your code and you're good. JKO gradient flows, okay. And this is what I'm going to use in the end of the talk. This congestion. So you want to force your margins to be smaller than alpha, a prescribed level, okay. And plus infinity else, so that's congestion. You want to do transport of densities, but the density cannot be above a certain level, alpha. Okay? And then you can work out these guys. You can have an almost analytical expression for in fact, in this case, it's analytical. And it's just to ask that you can send whatever you want, but you cannot go above alpha. Okay? That will be the line of code which enforces the constraint in your alternate projection algorithm. Okay? Okay, so that was this is the new stuff now. And, well, not so new, but the things that I recently understood. So for me, it's new. Okay, so this is known since Schrödinger, and actually the guy who's promoted all these ideas is Christian Leonard. So if you want to know more, he has written a lot of nice surveys of the link between Schrödinger problem and optimal transport. Okay? So I'm back to this problem of this mean field, in fact, this mean field problem, except that now instead of having a continuity equation, I have this viscosity term. Okay? So it's a Fokker-Planck equation. So the difference between optimal transport and this problem is just this guy. Okay? And as all of you know, I guess Yves has explained that, this is the variational stochastic planning mean field game. So you prescribe initial and final density, but now you have these additional terms. Okay? In fact, this is also equivalent to the so-called Schrödinger problem, which is to find the most likely path of a Brownian motion conditional to the initial and final densities. So this is, Gabriel Perez sent me these simulations which try to explain, if you have particles, you want to send the red particle to the blue particle along a Brownian motion, but now epsilon can be big or small. If epsilon is small, then if it's zero, actually it's optimal transport. And if it's larger, then you have some Brownian motion. Okay, it's going to be the law of a Brownian motion between these guys. Okay? And in fact, it's not too difficult to check that it's exactly the same thing, at least formally for me, because I'm not a probabilist. So for me, formally, it's easy to check that it's the same as solving this entropic regularization problem, which is nice. And to do so, you do a off-call change of variable, okay? And then when you do that, you check that you have this forward and backward heat equations. Okay, so that's under this change of variable, you find these guys. In fact, I was a bit embarrassed when I realized that, because I suddenly remembered that Olivier Guéant had the same idea to solve the mean field problem with quadratic Hamiltonians. And in fact, I think it's a numerical method, so I put a question mark here because I didn't find the paper back, but I think his numerical method was to do a fixed point on these two equations. Okay? But it's also interesting to remark that it's also equivalent to this system of equations, right? I mean, gamma is the heat kernel. So all you have to do is to find scaling vectors such that rho 0 is this guy and rho 1 is this guy, so at time t0 and time t1, okay? And this is the Schrödinger's system of my previous slide, because the gamma is my Gibbs kernel. It's the same, okay? So what I'm claiming is that solving this, in fact, is the same as... it took me 5 years to understand that. Is the same as solving this. Of course, epsilon may not be the same exactly, but... okay? And it works. So it's for epsilon small, a little bit big. I increased by 10 epsilon at each of these pictures. Okay? So this is the simulation, the same simulation with larger and larger entropy regularization. And this is the density of a Schrödinger bridge between the... Okay? computed with the Sinkhorn method extended to multi-marginal problem. Okay? Okay. You are convinced? Or? It's nice. I think it. No, but the funny part is, for example, with Eve, for a long time, we tried to devise very sophisticated method to deal with this guy, because that causes a lot of problems. When you discretize that, causes a lot of problems. Okay. So in the end, application to variational mean field games with quadratic Hamiltonians. So all the introduction was just in the hope that you would understand that. So in fact, it's written in a survey paper by actually myself, but Guillaume and Filippo did all the work. They were very nice to me to put my name on this paper. So it's the last part of this paper explains and gives a lot of references, technical references to explain that. So exactly like what I call the dynamic Kantorovich relaxation, you can have a Lagrangian relaxation of this problem in this space, the space of measure on probability measures on the curves. Okay, so you see K here is the kinetic energy of all the curves. So now I'm integrating over all the curves. So that's what I pay to move my particles. So it's the same story, okay? Maybe I should, that's a very formal talk, right? I mean, I should be very careful about the boundary condition and so forth. And now I'm going to add an energy. Okay, that's what I'm going. So that's going to be my energy. So I'm going to pay according to a function g, which is a convex function of rho. Okay. And you can, in fact, relax this guy with this g round, which is here. Okay, so yeah. So you integrate over time. This is the margin of my probability measure on the space of curves. So this is the density at each intermediate step, if you can give meaning to that. And this is exactly this guy, okay? And of course, you need to be able to give a meaning to rho. So you extend it by plus infinity if there is no density, and so forth. Okay? You okay with this problem? And this problem is linear. It has minimizer. It's nice. Well, this part is linear. This part depends on G. There is an interesting remark is that you can check that the optimal Q is actually can be interpreted as an equilibrium. Okay, but I refer to the paper. So this is work in progress. So at first I had written, I didn't notice, but it's a small joke. I had written RIP, so research in progress. But that can be interpreted in a very bad way. So I changed it for WIP, which is a nicer acronym. Okay, so this is my problem. And now I'm adding the entropic regularization. Okay? I'm adding the entropic regularization, which is here. So that's this guy. And again, you can, what can you do? So what I'm claiming is that, sure enough, it's going to be the same problem with some viscosity into your trajectory. There's going to be Brownian motion around your trajectories because of this entropic regularization. And it's the same of, you can embed these two, you can mix these two guys together and have this relative entropy with respect to this Q bar, which encodes the Brownian motion. Okay, so it's exactly like, there's nothing new here with respect to the discrete version. It's exactly the same formal computations. And apparently it's rigorous. Guillaume tells me that it works. But anyway, what I'm really interested, I mean, personally, is to do some computations. And so I'm back to my discretization. So I have M is the number of margins of my big matrix here. Okay, so that's time discretization. I have a grid in space. And now I have my density margin, so as usual. So I'm summing over all guys except one. I have a density at each of my time steps. Okay. The discrete mean-field game is going to be this Kullback-Leibler divergence. Q bar is written here. It's the same guy as before. Okay, for optimal transport, no change. The only thing that changes is that now I have discretized. So I have to be careful, maybe. I have discretized this guy, okay, along the curves. And I'm not saying how, but now I have my discrete problem, okay. Voilà. And optimal solution is a scaling again. So all these guys are Lagrange multipliers associated to all of these constraints, if you want. They are not constraints anymore because they are in the action, but it works the same. And I'm going to iterate margin-wise, alternate projection on each of these A, B, blah, blah, blah. So this is the Legendre functional transform of each of these guys. And this is the part which comes from this kernel. Okay? So there's a lot of young people in the audience who are eager to do some computation. So you can really compute that. You can do that tonight. I mean, the geeks are already coding that. Wait, in fact, I have a joke, but okay. Maybe I'll tell it afterwards. Okay, so that's my last slide, which shows the computation. So G is going to be congestion. What kind of congestion? I force the density to be not more than 0, so no density in some domain which moves across a long time. Okay? So you do that by saying that if there is density here, you pay plus infinity. Okay? And so this is for different level of discretizations. So this is 16, 16, 16 time steps, 32, 32, 32, 64, 64. So that goes slower because there are more time steps here. And you can add more obstacles. So I do first, I did that last week. So first I did 1, and then I did 2, and then I did 3, and then I stopped because I thought I could put more. But so it seems to, and of course it converges fine. So it seems to work quite nicely. Okay. So I hope it's clear. Yeah. And it takes. I did a very rough MATLAB code, and this computation takes just a few minutes, 3 minutes maybe on my laptop. So right now there's a student which starts working on that, and we hope to be able to do 3D mean-field games, 3D plus time, very soon on GPUs using this method. Okay. And the joke is that I did a talk last week, and with the same kind of tools applied to something else. And I saw somebody in the audience which were very interested, so I said, "Oh, you're actually trying to make the code," and he was. And and in the end, he came to see me, and the code was not working at all. So if you, but no, seriously, if you want to code that, you need to, you need to check this paper, okay? Because there are a few tricks which you need to know before starting to code this method, okay? But they are not very complicated, but it will make you save a lot of time, Okay? Okay. Then I stop. Ça marche pas.
Non, ça marche pas.
Okay.
So, any question? Yes?
So this is for hard congestion.
Yes.
So you impose. Oh, thank you. Okay. So you impose a hard constraint on the density, and if you want to do maybe soft congestion, maybe not for mean field game, but for you can start with a control problem which models soft congestion, and then does this approach
Yes,
work?
yes.
Or?
Yes, it will work the same. The only thing that changes is this this function here and this G function here. Okay, and then what in the end?
So the G function would involve both rho and
There would be
V,
rho,
right?
rho to the power m over m, blah blah blah. And then you will have to work out your duality. But in fact, you have already done it when you did the Lagrangian, the augmented Lagrangian method. The same calculations. You need the dual of the. So it's. So, voilà. So the reason I did hard congestion is that because I was lazy, and that's the simplest computation that you can do almost here, because the code is completely stupid. I mean, it's the code is completely stupid. But it helps understanding what did I write it somewhere? Yes. Sorry. Again, voilà. So what the code does is updates all these A's. Okay? So at the boundary, it forces the correct density, initial and final densities, by just putting rho 0 and rho 1 here. And in the middle, it just says, okay, if the total mass that I'm currently sending from my guy is too big, just put alpha. And in this case, it's 0. Alpha is 0, then it's the mean of that. So that's the line of code which is actually inside the method.
So in the case when you have the this scaling property, when do you use? What is the fundamental part where you use the quadratic structure of the Hamiltonian, and what can you extend it for? Otherwise, you don't have the scaling, I think.
Okay. No, I was saying the part which is important for the quadratic Hamiltonian is just the entropy. It's just the fact that. Okay, sorry. Yeah, yes, sorry, thank you. I was not clear at all. I'm a very bad orator. So it's to get the equivalence with this problem. Okay. So the quadratic Hamiltonian is important if you want to recover some stochastic mean field game with Brownian motion and so forth. Okay. I mean, the fact that the Schrödinger bridge problem is the same as the optimal transport problem, relaxed by the entropy, is only true for the Euclidean distance for this quadratic Hamiltonian case.
Okay.
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 But of course you could use this method. You can use, and in fact the people do. Where is it? Yeah. I mean, you could use this method with other cost function and with other gamma bar. Okay, so it would change here. Okay.
Because and also in the case of transport problem with p equals to 2, there is the explicit solution, the transport plan that is the gradient of the.
Yeah.
So people normally solve to find the transport, they solve the equation, the
Monge-Ampère.
The Monge-Ampère, merci. And so what I was thinking is that when you do this entropy and you let epsilon, so here you compute plans, you don't compute maps.
Yeah.
But when you do epsilon goes to 0, in some sense, can you see the transport, not the plan of a Monge-Ampère?
No, that's the main drawback of the method. Okay. So sorry, so I move forward. Well, So that's what you get. Okay? So there are no transport map. But of course, you can decrease epsilon. But that's one of the problems of the method that you need to learn first before. So there is a stability problem with epsilon, right?
Okay.
So in order to decrease, so there are ways to decrease epsilon, but not indefinitely. But you see, people can compute things very quite.
Yeah, because that picture is like.
Yeah.
Okay.
But of course, yeah, that's not the true problem of finding a transport map.
Okay, thank you.
But
Sorry.
you can, I mean, this, and it's the same with the densities, right? I mean, I represent moving densities. Here, epsilon is maybe 1 over 1,000, 0.001. So this is not the true geodesic, of course, because it has been smoothed a little bit. But for the density, I mean, it's not bad, right? I mean, and sometimes you may want, for example, in this, this picture is very beautiful. First, because it's taken out of a SIGGRAPH paper, right? Because otherwise it would not be in a SIGGRAPH paper. But also, so this is a hard problem, right? I mean, it's a barycenter in 3D of shapes. So it's really a 3D computation, and there are grids. So, and if you do in an experiment of thought a Wasserstein barycenter, it's okay because you are in a continuous domain, and the support of your barycenter is continuous, and everything is fine. If you are not careful and you do a barycenter on you sample on grids and you do that from scratch, and you have no regularization at all, then of course you are not sure that you're going to recover the correct support. And the result is horrible. So if you don't do anthropic regularization like here, you will have a lot of noise because of that. So the success of that thing is completely linked to the anthropic regularization method, which is also what allows to compute in practice. So it's nice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there is no other question, we can thank again Jean-David. Thank you.